Move on to our first of our 5 reports, 7.1. So Susie,
Not here, so
okay, so 7.1,
cover for that.
lovely. So this report is regarding the July 2022 emergency event funding application to consider how our road infrastructure initial response recovery damage repairs should be funded. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Dixon.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is unfortunately another major weather event hit this district, and with I think the climate change, it seems to be becoming more and more frequent these days. So the significant cost, of course, to repair the roads out there, and it's a case of how do we fund this. So in the past, and what I am proposing this time round, is that we have funded the emergency works repairs and the recovery through the disaster recovery fund that council has, and the council puts money into that every year and to build the fund. However, given the frequency of events, I think there is a concern long term that that's not going to be sustainable. But there is certainly sufficient funds in the account for this event. There's $2.7 million sitting in there at the moment, and we're asking for $1.225 million, which will cover us. Remember that Waka Tauhahi also funds these events, and they are funding 51% of the cost, and that is additional funding that they provide. So just the extra bit. So we, the purpose of this report is basically seeking, I guess, your approval to utilise that disaster recovery fund. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Wills.
Thank you for that. Just curious, obviously we can cover the cost. The screen has just been lost again. Obviously we can cover the cost, but is there also a requirement for us to maybe, because obviously these weather events haven't been lessening, in fact they've been increasing, for a need for us to look at maybe increasing the funding for the emergency disaster relief. I'm just wondering if that's something we need to talk about now as well.
Yeah, I think that at some stage we do have to talk about that, but I think it's probably more of an issue for the long-term plan.
Okay. So we're looking at option 1 at this particular time? Yes, I'm happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Wills. Any other
Sorry,
discussion?
Sorry, mine isn't queuing. Yeah, my question was around that as well. At the last long-term plan, I think we did increase, didn't we? Do you know what that amount was by?
Was it 2 million?
It was per year.
300,000 per year.
Yeah,
300,000 per annum, I think.
So yeah, I totally agree and support a consideration with the next LTP, isn't it? I think probably runs on the same page on that one. And sorry, happy to second it if didn't go through. Just on a side note, Andrew, you know, obviously contractors have been pretty busy with this work. Has that delayed any other activity? And you know, will that be you know, caught up in regard to just, you know, general maintenance, rural roads, those sorts of things?
It certainly has delayed some of the more routine maintenance works out there, so there is a slight drop in the level of service, but the contractors are working hard to catch up with that. And I think we're pretty much getting there now. Yeah, our resurfacing, in fact, is starting this week.
So I've got a mover and a seconder. Any other further discussion?
Sorry, can I confirm that move and second, please?
Mover was Councillor Wills and seconder was Mayor Bowen.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2, the airport upgrade. So, so the foundation has been laid for this report. Background, you know, a case was prepared. We discussed it during our long-term plan, 2021 to 31. It was prepared, it was discussed with the long-term plan. And during the upgrade back in 2018, Air New Zealand then increased its aircraft capacity from 19 to 50. During the, so we do have some risks with the increase population of people being present, the warranted fitness for the building, what I see, 128, and also future aviation security requirements. So I'll take the report as read and open the floor to you, Bede, to speak to the report.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, the purpose here really is to seek some direction on where we take the extension for the airport. It's not that long ago that we did an upgrade, and at that time, of course, when it was done, it was on the basis that we would meet the demand, and it would be a good problem to have if we had to come back and seek an extension, which we now need to do. The issue here really we see is that both the airport and the relationship with Air New Zealand are strategic. And the airport upgrade for the last one actually coincided when Air New Zealand moved from using the Beach 1900, which was it a 19 or 20? 19-seater to the Q300, which is a 50-seater. The Air New Zealand have indicated to us, and while it may be some years away, they will progressively move to a bigger prop plane such as the ATR, which is 68, I think, plus crew. 72. Yeah, 72 when you include crew, 68 passengers for crew. And so it's the capacity to deal with that upgauging of the aircraft to manage that demand. So that's really the sort of drivers of making sure that we can meet CAA requirements, including enhanced security requirements and the Air New Zealand expectations. Happy to take questions. Both Andrew and I are happy to take questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Paddington.
Yeah, look, the airport's an essential gateway to Timaru, I agree. But Bede, I think we need a robust business plan for this. You know, we want a functional airport looking to the future, not a palace. And there's a few things that concern me. I mean, the report talks about business meetings, etc. Unless you bring a sleeping bag, you can't fly in and out of Timaru in a day. And we already have conference facilities all over Timaru and meeting rooms that are underused. Yeah, look, I just think until we actually hear exactly what we need, we should actually go back to the drawing board, talk to Timaru, talk to Air New Zealand, because there's lots of ifs and buts and maybes, but I don't see any direct relationship. And that whole top story to me is just a complete waste of time.
So, Councillor Paddington, we discussed the future of the airport prior to a long-term plan, putting it out for publication. And so we had a lot of facts and figures back then before we even went to the community saying, shall this be? So I'm not sure where you're coming from trying to step back saying you haven't had that information already.
What I'm trying to say, Sally, is we put 1.7 or 1.9 into the budget, whatever it is, and I'm happy with that for an airport extension. But you cannot deliver what that design is for anywhere near that number. The budget will be blown to pieces.
So initially this is a concept design, it's not an in-depth design. So then when it would move to a detailed design, would that not be where we'd be looking at what we would be able to?
Well, I would have thought a concept design is what you've moved from. And if you've designed all those rooms, wouldn't the natural step, unless we say, well, we don't need them now, they will also appear. I mean, I'm at a bit of a loss how the process where we put that money in to extend the airport and then we come up with these drawings with lots of things we don't need.
Yeah, can I just in response to that, Councillor, firstly, yes, we actually get requests for meetings out there now. What you're forgetting about is, or probably not aware of, is the number of corporate jets that come into Timaru. We are regularly getting them in probably 2 or 3 times a week. If you've got people coming from Auckland, they tend to charter jets rather than take the New Zealand service because it is a lot quicker for them and it gives them more flexibility. So yes, we are regularly getting requests, and we arrange meetings in the terminal space after flights have gone, and we try to work that through. But it's not the best of situations. So there is another business. It's not just about Air New Zealand scheduled flights. There is that whole corporate aspect as well. It is, what we're asking for in this concept is that we've got an option to basically, we can build the maximum box, effectively extend the terminal, and the terminal is just a box at the end of the day. It's not a flash building from a structural perspective. We can extend it to the full footprint to future-proof it. We don't have to fit that out, and that's what we're proposing as a staged approach here. We can do the basics, and as these demands come online, like potentially aviation security, AVSEC, that's in civil aviation already talking about that now. The bigger planes coming in, we've already extended our runway to take 2 ATRs on the apron. So we are future proofing, I guess. And the business case for this is really, do you want an Air New Zealand service or not? And I know there's risks involved with this. There's no doubt about that, and the costing wise and what we do. But I do note that in Council's recent risk workshop, you said that Council has a high appetite for risk in the context of supporting areas of economic development. And this is what I see as economic development. This is the gateway to this district. And I think that, so we're just spending it, extending that through. Who knows? You could have a requirement for a Kuru Club one day, but it's not saying we build it now. We just build the footprint.
Well, it doesn't appear that we're saying build the footprint, but can we actually have a report? Because I keep getting numbers thrown at me of number of private jets arriving. Could we look back at the past 12 months and see that number of jets that have come, privately chartered, the number of people, so we can get a feel for this?
Yep. I can happy to give you the aircraft movements data. Yep. We're running on about 900 a month at the moment, which does include private aircraft.
Sorry, I guess my point is, Andrew, I don't want to expose ratepayers to a cost that can be limited in 10 years' time when the ATRs come. And the feedback I've got from people since those pictures have gone out are ridiculous. And just on that, I've also had 2 people query, they're obviously in the industry, whether this project was tendered out.
This project is very much in a concept stage, and no, it wasn't tendered. We invited a few architects to look at this project, but it wasn't done on a competitive tender basis, no. And the next stage could be done on a competitive tender basis, which is the detailed design.
Just on that, Andrew, for clarity and transparency, I think it should be tendered, surely. We're not going to handpick people we like. Projects.
Can I speak to that, Councillor Parker?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, look, that was raised at a tenders meeting, and that the appropriate way from elected members should be that, even at that level, that it should be tendered out, and it was noted at the time, and it was some months ago, but that was the request. And I know all elected members wouldn't have been there, but that was the request based on the same thought process. Can I, while I've got the floor, and I know Councillor Booth was in before me, my microphone's just giving me authority over others. Apologies for that. But look, I do think there's some numbers that need to be wrapped around this and support Councillor Piddington and that basic business case. What are the likely increases in square meterage rates that we're going to get from Air New Zealand if we have to put in security, etc., if it's an increased lease, just some of those basic numbers. Also, I'm interested, and I know we met with the airport users group, but was there a written feedback survey done? Because I think that's probably quite important to have that data if it doesn't exist, because I think that's a good process. And then the third thing, which is probably a question, is was there consideration to go east on one level versus we're moving west into the tower, just flat one level versus 2 levels, and consideration around cost?
Thank you, Mayor Bowen.
Yeah, just in response to that, going the east, is it, or, yeah? Yeah, basically, we've gone what we consider the easiest way to go, and that is off the back wall of the terminal and then out onto that sealed area. Part of the reason is for going up is to, I guess, provide a view for the Timaru for public. And we have been in discussions with the Aviation Heritage Centre. They could perhaps have their display up there in lieu of the observation tower that will be demolished if we extend fully out there. So it's basically looking at that option as well and giving them, and they require meeting space as well, as you know, by demolishing that observation tower, they're losing their meeting room. So we are saying, well, perhaps you could use the meeting room or meeting area on the, you know, that upper deck of that building. Now we could easily just extend out on a single story. That's fine. There's no problem with that. It's, yeah, it reduces your options in the future, and that's what we're looking at here. You know, I'm just conscious that we did up the terminal in 2018, and here we are talking about doing it up again. We didn't anticipate the changes, and we didn't future-proof that terminal. And I'm very conscious that we don't want to be doing that again.
Thank you, Andrew. Oh. Councillor
on, sorry.
Will, can we let Councillor Booth please have a go? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, it's actually, we've just had a strategy session there. I'm a venture Timaru. I'm going to put an economic development hat on. And it's pretty obvious that we actually need to, it's a critical part of our infrastructure is actually the airport. It's probably as important, almost as important as the port. And a whole lot of other linkages, but it's certainly secondary, probably only to the port as far as people entering our district. And it's seen as, you know, obviously aspirationally, we'd love to see a direct flight from Auckland to Timaru. Okay, so there's only one way that's going to happen, and that's if we have the infrastructure to handle such occasions. We're the gateway centrally to the South Island. So therefore, Alp Station, every single thing that we've got to offer, and obviously our industry, there's a lot of people coming and going, as you mentioned, jets, this, that, and the next thing. Business people coming, do business and leaving. Okay, so really, aspirationally, we should be aiming to get to accommodate bigger planes, and the Air New Zealand, I believe, have said that their size is generally that ATR 72, which is probably could come here from Auckland. So we need to ensure that we actually have a fit for purpose airport, and think when here we are 3-4 years down the track when we did the airport last time. You know, obviously we perhaps weren't aspirational enough at that point, and you know, the year in 2019, I think we had to increase the car park size. You know, it was just ridiculous. So why don't we actually just get a proper master plan and plan for the future, and do the job properly? And that might include a few other bits and pieces that perhaps you may not think are required, but it doesn't have to be, you know, a meeting room, but you know, because generally there's probably going to still be 2 or 3 flights, perhaps a day, perhaps 4, who knows? But we need to be thinking ahead, and the bigger planes are going to come. We're going to extend our runway so we could possibly get jets. We need to be looking into the future, especially around the airport. So I'd like to see a master plan done, which includes enough car parks, by the way, and so and to accommodate the future aspirations for our region for the next 20-30 years.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Wills.
Well, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. First of all, I must just voice my disappointment that we haven't used local architects once again to look at, you know, our own infrastructure systems. But moving forward, and just as well we go through the costing process, I reckon it'd be very beneficial not just to necessarily look at a 2-story sort of building that will suit our purposes, but also a single level story that can be spread across, and how that would look, especially coming when we talk about the costings involved with other big projects we currently have on our scheduling and long-term plan, and the achievability to make sure that we meet those demands around our financial ability to step up to it as well. So if we go back to the drawing board around costings, I'd certainly want to see a single story opportunity put forward to everyone to have a discussion around as well.
Thank you, councillor Wills. Any further discussion from councillors that have not spoke yet? Councillor Oliver.
Well, I think I'm on, am I? I'd just like to ask a question. Has Air New Zealand approached us for any sort of provisional space for a Koro Lounge for the future? Has there been any discussions with them around that, or have they approached us?
Air New Zealand have not approached us regarding a Koro Lounge, no, but they have approached us. They are already requesting additional space to separate their operations, airside and non-airside crews. And they also want to separate their air crews now, because a lot of this has been driven by COVID and the need to separate the crews out. So and we are building them actually a little garage, if you could call it that, to actually store some of their de-icing equipment and that they have. So they need to separate that and have that in a proper area. So yeah, there is certainly demands for space. Air New Zealand have also indicated that they want to separate arrivals and departures, and that is a major risk for them. And that, yeah, so they want to, so hence they want to have, yeah, a separate arrival, to move the check-in area to the other end of the terminal. So yeah, there has been a lot of discussions with Air New Zealand on this.
And just, sorry, another quick question. Have they indicated anything in their long-term plan around extension of growth into Timaru with more flights?
We have spoken to, yeah, the chair of the Air New Zealand board, and yeah, it's indicated that Timaru is an important route for them. They are certainly making money on it given the loadings in recent times. They're operating on around 70% capacity, which is quite really good for a regional route. In fact, even better than some of the main trunk loads. Remember that after COVID, Timaru was the very first service to run back to full schedule. And so yeah, that is quite important to them, and they are keen to keep it. And I'm sure they're keen to expand it, but that expansion is probably more likely to be bigger aircraft rather than more another aircraft service.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Oliver. Councillor Pennington, last part of the cherry.
I just want to note, Andrew, I spoke to someone from the Heritage Centre rang me last night, and they're totally opposed to losing the control tower. So I wonder if we could look east rather than west. And second to that, they did offer in the Aviation Centre, they have rooms for meetings if you'd like to take up their offer.
Just as a point out that their meeting room in fact is the old control observation tower, which is not suitable for public use. It is full of asbestos. Yes, there is a certain group in that Heritage Museum there that is opposed to it, but then we have also had discussions, as at a recent airport meeting, where a lot of that group also support the demolition of it.
Councillor Gilchrist.
Not a question, Madam Chair, just pointing out that the architect involved in these concept drawings is a local architect, in fact, just over in the Royal Arcade. Couldn't probably get much more local. Just want to point that out.
It's very helpful, thank you. Okay, so let's have a look at a recommendation. The recommendation that's been given to us, we may need to alter slightly. So the recommendation as it stands at the moment is that the Infrastructure Committee confirms support for the proposal to extend the existing passenger terminal at the Timaru Richard Pearse Airport to meet future requirements, and the proposed demolition of the observation tower subject to further consultation. Okay, do we have any movers on this current recommendation? Councillor Booth?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make it part of an overall master plan for the airport for the future. So I think it should be driven by, this should be driven by an overall plan for the future needs of a modern, progressive airport.
So could it read that the infrastructure committee confirms support for the proposal of a master plan to extend the existing passenger terminal? Could we put that in?
It's like an overall, I mean, it's one thing doing the terminal, it's another thing that you need,
Yeah.
actually you need 3 times the amount of car parks now, potentially. So you need to plan for that at the same time and have a schematic, which you know what's going to go where at the appropriate time.
Support for the development of a master plan
And extension of the existing passenger.
and extension of the existing passenger terminal. Have you got that? And then
Those two meet future requirements.
so the infrastructure committee confirms support for the development of a master plan and
the proposal to extend
the proposal to extend
the existing.
the existing passenger terminal at Timaru Richard Pearce Airport to meet future requirements.
Master plan would take that up.
You got that?
What services required?
So just for clarity, shouldn't we be just getting a master plan?
That's what it is.
That's what we are confirming, support to develop a master plan. Yep.
But you've also got an extend the existing terminal.
No, with a view to,
Future requirements.
the requirements for, yeah.
Yeah, my concern is that this is a project in the LTP. The extension of the terminal is scheduled for this coming financial year. So it's been confirmed as a project. So are we putting this project on hold and then doing the master plan first?
Can I speak to that?
Councillor Birch, yes.
So there's a significant body of work already been done with TDHO and VT as well in terms of that master plan. There's a lot of work that's been carried out around facts and figures, and it's all there. So that can be extrapolated back out into this. So we have to move on this. It's an LTP project that we looked at, but we live in exceptional times. I mean, it would have been good to be aspirational and understand what was going to happen in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. With COVID and everything else that's moved on us, we just have to be agile. And yes, and to Councillor Plin's his point, with this, it can't be ad hoc. We need to make sure that we have the options and understand what the triggers are for this, and also with a view to what we know potential is for the future. So let's move on this. There is a lot of work there that they can pull on. Let's have a timeline around what this master plan is, so that we're not dragging it out. And let's, as to Councillor Booth's point, this is extremely, extremely important and secondary to our port, and it goes to the very point of what looks to us as a provincial progressive area, and this is exactly what's happening now with the amount of use that this airport's getting.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Okay, let's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I, it seems that to me there's effectively 3 parts here. One, you would like to see the development of a master plan to ensure that the airport is going to meet the potential future demand, such as car parks and so on, Councillor Booth. Secondly, to advance the extension of the terminal as set out in the long-term plan. And the third part there is in regard to the current observation tower and whether that will be demolished. Now, there are a number of issues with that observation tower. I think it is old. It does have a lot of asbestos. That room at the top is essentially all but inaccessible for people. It is not accessible for anybody unless they have significant, they're quite mobile, and there are risks. You wouldn't be able to carry anything up there. It really is like a kind of a steep ladder to that top of that observation tower. So it does seem you've got effectively the committee here is looking to move on 3 parts, if I understand it. One is whether or not you develop a master plan, you extend the terminal, and we're seeking there whether we extend the footprint to try and future-proof. And the third is, do you want to proceed with the demolition of the current old, disused and decommissioned observational control tower. Does that assist at all in terms of framing the resolution?
Can you able to read it to us, what stands currently?
Okay. Recommendation 1, that the Infrastructure Committee confirms support for a proposal to develop a proposal plan of master. 2, that the proposal be extended at the airport to meet future requirements and be future-proofed. And 3, that the requirements of the tower to be demolished. So we'd have to have a decision-making on that third one, whether it was to be demolished or...
Is that initially on the recommendation that was given to us, it said subject to further consultation. So what was the idea behind the subject to further consultation? Who was that with?
So can I help you here? Let's not overthink this. The master plan, let's not think that a master plan is some LTP 3-year job. This is us putting a business case together, and in that, the aspect of where and how it could be built, including the demolition aspect, is going to be included in there, plus the cost, and with some projections of the future around what we need it for, why we're having it, the options and the potential for cars, so the car park extension and that. So we shouldn't, let's just understand that those aspects are all going to be part of a decent business plan and or what we're calling a master plan.
Master plan. Okay, Councillor Burt, do you want to round up a recommendation then?
All that under, we're asking for we're asking for a business plan that gives, under consultation, that aligns the future proofing of the potential build and why, the future proofing of the car park and why, and the demolition in relation to the tower and the why. Simple as that.
So, so I'm just going to read out this recommendation. Recommendation 1, that the Infrastructure Committee confirms support to propose and develop a master plan. 2, the council propose to extend the existing passenger terminal at Timaru Richard Pearce Airport to meet the extended services required into the future. And that could be as per long-term plan, really. And then the tower requirements and the proposed demolition of the observation tower subject to further consultation. Okay, I'm happy to move recommendations 1, 2 and 3. Councillor Burt is going to second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Okay. Let's move on to page 33. It's report 7.3, landfill cover alternative options. So this is to provide an update and is requesting support to investigate an alternative option that our current contractor has used and has experience in. So from looking at this report, it's to look at investigating this alternative option and to compare it to what we were initially going to propose, what was proposed for the land cover. So we've got Catherine. So welcome, Catherine. I'll take the report as read and I'll ask you to speak to it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. This report is just an investigation, really. So we've been asked by our contractor ESL to investigate alternative cover, spray-on cover specifically. We have had one of our staff members do a tour of Splicer landfill in Porirua and have a look at how that operation works. And I have recently, since writing this report, have received a Tonkin and Taylor report that goes into it in detail. So, which hasn't been outlined in this report, obviously. So it's a conversation about having a look at this option and reviewing it and see how it weighs up against other options that are around. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Can I
Thank you. I'll just let Andrew Dixon speak as well first.
Just to adding that, the long-term plan indicated that we would use a trial of landfill lids, and that was very specific around that with that resolution. What we are saying is our contractors have actually suggested an alternative, and I feel that it's worth looking at least investigating that alternative. We are not discounting the landfill lids in any way. All we're saying is we should investigate this other option, as it could be a better one, it may not be, but it will come down to the development of the business cases for all these options, and we'll take the best option at the time. But we need to develop the business, at least consider the alternatives.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you, Andrew.
through you, Madam Chair, just briefly for council.
Just declare a conflict, and I will stand back from it, because Environment Canterbury are regulatory in this space, so I'll sit back.
Thank you, Councillor Burt. For those that couldn't hear, he's just going to stand back for this one regarding conflict. Councillor Puddington.
It's my day and I'm only getting warmed up. Regards the lid trial, in November last year, in this room, we passed that we would have that trial. Why didn't we have it? The first question. The person who suggested it is rather upset that no one from this council's returned his calls or phone calls, over half a dozen, to explain how the lids work, because he claims the information supplied isn't accurate. And so last time I talked off the record to someone, they said the lids were gone. So are they now back part of that trial? So there's about 3 questions there. Andrew, if you could be so kind.
Okay, yeah, the lids are still on the table as a potential, but as I said, we need to do the business cases for each of the options before proceeding. A trial for lids is, you're basically looking at purchasing one lid, and we probably need about 4 to cover the full face of our landfill. So there is an issue over the effectiveness of trialling just one lid. It's going to be difficult. We have to sort of get it in our heads and how we're going to do that. The foam is a lot easier, it's spray-on stuff, you can work it out. The issues with the lids, of course, the major risk I see is the odour side of things, that the lids are sitting on landfill, that they do not seal a landfill, unlike the other options, which is the soil, which is currently used, and the potential spray-on. So there's a huge risk of odour, and that's where I think that puts our resource consent at risk. So I do have concerns with that. The lids are used in Australia extensively, but they have a different landfilling type. They fill holes. We're not filling a hole here. We're actually going up. And I do not know of these lids used anywhere else in New Zealand, to be honest. So, but I was saying, we need to look at these and come up with robust business cases for both options, or even the status quo. We may end up just sticking with the soil and being status quo, which there are advantages with that too. It's cheap. We don't pay anything for the soil cover, the daily cover, and also it acts as a fire retardant within the landfill itself.
Mayor Bowen.
Look, I think the key thing is across the 3 options now, whether it's the one presented here, whether it's landfill lids and or status quo, we just need some genuine cost-benefit analysis to consider the 3 options, and taking into the concerns listed here, but let's just get a bit more detail and do this right, because it does go back to the point that we committed to a trial, and we've quite a way down the road now, and I understand the issues with other priorities and building compost facilities and other things, updates at the landfill, but it would be good to get some action on this so we can put it to bed and have a decision. So perhaps on that, maybe we add some a timeline in this so we can definitively define when it's going to be done. And also I do share concerns around communication. If someone from the public has rung us, and I'm not sure the detail around that, but we should be getting back in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. I'll move to Councillor Oliver.
I just have a quick question. Part of covering the landfill was to control vermin. does hydro mulching adequately control that problem, that issue?
Does
Vermin, like
mulching
rats and
control
mice and
vermin?
stuff in the landfill, that's why we cover the landfill, that's one of the purposes. Does hydro mulching adequately control that problem?
Yes, the mulch itself actually sprayed on and hardens, so yeah, it will control the vermin a lot better. Yeah, whereas landfill lids potentially won't because there'll be lots of cavities in there.
Okay, it was just the photos that we were sent through didn't sort of indicate that that was possible, that's all.
You all right?
Yep, thanks.
Councillor Booth?
Yeah, I just, looking at the item, number 6 here, so saying that it is estimated 50% of landfill is filled with low-level contaminated soils. That seems an awful lot considering the cost of a landfill. Is that, so obviously there's quite a major cost benefit in not putting that soil in there and having the space taken up with actual rubbish instead of hard dirt. I guess there's it's just just an observation. The gas flaring, and then I guess and that's going to help with our carbon liability, isn't it? You can't quite tell us what that is at the moment, but you will, hopefully. And I guess the material that this mulch consists of is wood fibre and pulp paper. So that stuff there potentially would be going into, with the coating, does that actually still mulch down and actually disappear as per normal?
So since receiving the Tonkin Taylor report, they did the trial over in autumn and winter period. So they really wanted to test it out if it was going to work under those kind of weather conditions. And so they did have some rain events through that time, and they had a heavy rain event as well. So they get a loss of that cover from between, within a shower, 3%, and for a downpour, 13%. So there is a wash away, but it's still held together.
So can it be applied then
It did, yeah.
during a rain event?
That's right.
It can.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess is there plenty of wood fibre to make this? How much stuff do you need every day?
So I haven't gone into that much detail on that. So yeah, it would be looked at with the business case.
Sure. Okay. No, that's so basically there's going to be a cost benefit in the long term because we're not going to be filling our landfill up with 50% dirt.
No, we want to prolong the life of our landfill.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
That is the major driver of these looking at these alternatives is to save landfill space.
Okay.
That air space has a value.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Just discussing with Mr Dixon regarding a time frame, and they are quite advanced down the track. We're thinking February 2023, back to Infrastructure Committee. Okay, so the recommendation that the Infrastructure Committee supports the investigation of the spray-on hydro mulch as an alternative option to soil cover, and let landfill lids and do a business case to be presented on the feasibility of this option in February 2023 to the Infrastructure Committee.
Sorry, Sally, could it be all options, not just this option?
We can do that to support investigation.
Yeah, go on the spray on hydromulch, landfill lids and status quo and cost benefit analysis, something like
And
that.
status
Goes
quo.
on to-
Business case for all options.
Yeah. So you're all right with that, Claire? Yeah. Okay, I'm happy to move that recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Gilchrist. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to 7.4. So this is the Fitzgerald Road stopping between Iluka Road and State Highway 1. Susie's not here, so Andrew will be able to speak to this paper. So it's a discussion about stopping. I think that's quite clear that we need to make that. It's about stopping the road. So over to you, Andrew.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a proposal putting forward to actually stop a section of road from Locker Road to State Highway 1. Now, the road itself is actually closed as such. It's fenced off and there's irrigators and it's used as farming when there's a bit of a track. So it's not used by the public in any way at this stage. The owners have requested and to look at stopping the road, and in fact Waikakatahi have also requested that we look at stopping because the intersection itself with Fitzgerald Road and State Highway 1 is not the best, and although it is closed off now, not causing an issue, the long-term stopping and ceasing of any possibility of an intersection in the future is favourable to them. But once the decision is made to stop a road, you have two choices. You basically can use the Public Works Act or the Local Government Act. There's two pieces of legislation. Now, the Public Works Act requires the consent of all property owners around it and also the consent of the Minister of Lands, as it LINZ effectively, doing that. So this is recommended, this report's recommending that we use the Public Works Act. Now, the difference between the two pieces of legislation is the consultation side of things. So if we go with the Public Works Act, there is no public consultation. It is purely just relying on the consent of the surrounding owners. So the public do not get that opportunity. And we often use the Public Works Act where roads are in fact not public roads. Very different to the Pavement Street case down at the port where it is actually used as a road, and it's very important that the public have at least a say in the process. Should you public consultation of some form be important to you, well then you have the option of using the Local Government Act, Schedule 10. So, and that's really what the decision is made. If you choose to go with the Public Works Act, the decision you're making today is stopping that road. It's not simply kicking off a process, it is stopping the road. Yeah.
I welcome Councillor Oliver. Would you like to speak first?
Yeah, so the reason we went down the Public Works Act was there was obviously talks with the landowners, the adjacent landowners, and it was discussed quite in depth. And there's no real benefit to any sort of there's no benefit of any sort of routes to any sort of recreation areas or anything like that. So we didn't deem that public consultation was required. So that's why we've gone with the Public Works Act.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I'd just like to welcome Wayne. Would you like to speak to this at all on the jury?
Yes, thank you.
You can come forward if you like.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Gavin summed that up very well. The only thing I'd like to add to that is we did ask at our board meeting that if this land was to be sold, could that money be transferred into providing public access somewhere else in the ward, so that the public seems to think that we're giving away a road, but and we're getting money for it, but we'd like the access, if possible, to be provided somewhere where it was of benefit to everybody else, since it is a public road that we're getting rid of. Other than that, Gavin summed it up very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, I probably don't agree with what was just suggested there, but anyway. Well, I don't. Okay, now, the adjoining landowner, is it just the one on both sides? Does he on either side, or has you got one on one side and there's another one on the other?
It's the same landowner on both sides of the road, current road at the moment. Yeah. But there is, of course, another landowner on Rooker Road, so we consulted with them as well because they might have some use for it in the future, perhaps, but they've given consent.
And so is the market value, what's the quantum of the area?
About, it's about $90,000 is what the value of the land is potentially.
So it's a couple of couple of
It's
hectares.
about 3 hectares, I think. Yeah.
3 hectares, okay, yeah. And that's at market value.
Yes, well, before we sell it, we would get a market valuation done on it, and that would be the price that we'd offer to the landowner.
Right, and if he says no? If he says no,
If
he
he says,
doesn't want to pay that much, he wants to gift it to him?
yeah, we wouldn't gift it. We'd just hang on to it, and it would be freehold land
Okay.
through his farm.
That's what I wanted to hear, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Booth. Councillor Birch.
You know, I was just going to follow up on that process. I thought that land would automatically go back to Lynn's, and Lynn's would make a decision in respect to that, and that strip would be vested in theirs. It's not that. That's not the case.
Once a road is stopped, it becomes freehold land in the title of council.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Gilchrist.
No further discussion, I'm happy to move. Move the recommendation as it stands. Oh, sorry, option 2, yeah, I'm at the start of it.
So that's regarding stopping the
Yes,
road
option two,
accordance
yep,
with sections 116, 117 of the Public Works Act.
yes.
Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Thank you, councillor Wills. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Very good. Let's move to our final report, which is 7.5, which is a progress update. So we've got Josephine here.
No, we haven't.
We haven't. So we're going to take the report as read, and I'll Andrew Bede.
I will try and answer as many questions as I can.
Wonderful. Shall we just do it chunk by chunk? So the first one up is the Parallel Pipeline Renewal. Any questions, queries, comments regarding that update?
My only question through you, Madam Chair, is just around the mitigation while we do stage 2. Are we going to have are we looking now for an alternative pipeline to keep the water flowing while that's out of action, just with the recent events?
Yeah, this is the major challenge with this particular project and why it's been delayed up until now. It will require at some point, or a number of periods, which the pipeline will have to be shut down. So we are looking at mitigating that time, and one of the options we've got is actually relaying a section of it rather than just relining, which was the original proposal. So we relay it so we can change that part over in time. The other thing is we are looking at a potential bypass during the lining of the remaining section, but that we're busy getting that costed at the moment, but it's just challenging. But yeah, if things settle down, we may be able to go back to plan A and actually allow for it shut down, particularly as now we can reliably take water from the Opahi source, that the manganese level has dropped down immensely.
Councillor Booth.
The reason why stage 2 is not commenced, is that a contractor issue, or is that basic conditions, or what's the issue?
Stage 2 is the lining of the existing pipeline, and it got delayed initially due to the COVID. In fact, that the liner had to come from Germany. So there was quite a significant delays in getting it here. It is now in the country. But the other hurdle we got, as I mentioned before, was the logistics of making sure that we have continuity of supply, good supply during construction.
Okay. Downlands Water Supply Scream update. Sorry, Councillor Pennington.
Just Andrew, so just so I've got this clear in my mind, you're now saying we're going to sleeve it, my understanding was. Now a portion of that isn't going to be sleeved. You're actually going to build new.
That's correct.
What percentage of that?
I'm not sure. I think it's only about 25%, perhaps a quarter of it.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I missed it too.
Sorry, missed. Yeah, too quick on the button. It would be about 25% of it.
I guess that does bring, why wouldn't we do the whole thing new, brand new, rather than re-sleeve? If we're now going back to look at a quarter of it.
The issue is it's some very unstable ground, and it's through a gorge, so it's not, although we looked at it, it's certainly not practical in our opinion to even attempt to put a new pipeline through that area.
Thank you, councillor Puddington. Moving on to Downlands Water Supply Scheme upgrade is attachment 1. Any discussion regarding this update? Okay, Timona Water Supply Scheme update. No. Okay, a 3 Waters program, attachment 3. Any discussion? We'll keep moving then to a road renewals and improvement program, attachment 4. Very good. What about attachment 5, the City Play project? Any discussion on that? Councillor Puddington.
Yeah, can we have an update? I understand costs have gone up, so I'm keen to know how, because it says we're paying for half, so if the costs go up, are we still paying for half, or are we, where are we at?
The stage we're at the moment is that the design is still being finalised, and they're still getting the final cost together and relate to that. So yeah, although the playground equipment has been all sorted out, there's a lot of work needs to be done around the contours of the land and the matting and everything else, and that's where the costs are. So we are still awaiting that final cost. It has certainly been indicated to be higher than the original budget, which is probably not expected.
So that in turn will then push out the commencement date and completion date.
Yes, I currently chair that committee. So we have another meeting on the 19th this month.
Alan, can you just help out?
But we'll finalise around some of the finer details that's going to have to be discussed. So then we'll have some more information available for the council and also for the public as well.
So, and sorry, councillor Wills, when was that meeting?
19th September.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's helpful.
And sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I think you raised a good point. Our funding commitment is that $1 million at the LTP, and I know there might be some assistance, from parks, etc., and around, some works whereby we can, get, some mutually beneficial outcomes, etc., around, drainage of the car park, etc. But those are fixed sums, and would need to, any further additional funding would need to come back through a formal request if it was unbudgeted capital expenditure. It's probably the best way to put it, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. Councillor Booth.
When we're just talking about roading, obviously at the moment the State Highway 1 right through the middle it's absolute shambles. But anyway, when's the program for the new intersection, and have you got any further updates around that?
I'm going to pull you back, councillor Booth. At the moment we're talking about the Sea Play project.
Oh, right.
Okay. If you
Can I
want
go
to,
back to
that could be a discussion under minor business if you wanted to do a discussion.
I'd love to do that, that'd be great.
Okay. Can we tag that on?
Take it offline too.
Can we tag that onto minor business, a discussion regarding State Highway 1, please? Okay, any further discussion regarding, Gavin?
I'm sorry, I missed the point there, sorry. I missed at the start of the section, there was some stuff about water and drainage. I'm just wondering, in the infrastructure program, when is the siphon going to start for the Geraldine sewerage across to the oxidation ponds, the siphon? Sorry, I'm going back a wee bit.
You're going back to which one?
Sorry, where we were talking about key projects around water and drainage. Right at the start.
Okay, so that's another, that would have to go into minor business for discussion. It's not part of this. Would you like that added on for today's meeting?
Yeah, if we could, that would be good.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, any more discussion regarding Sea Play? All right, let's move on to City Hub Strategy, City Town Project, Attachment 6. Councillor Oliver, are you still in, or are you?
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? Okay, let's move forward to the Wash Dyke Network Improvements Attachment 7. Okay, we'll keep going on to the Red Roof Landfill Cell 3.5 and gas flare construction. Councillor Booth.
I just wonder if I can see the contract and the amount of the budget. Is it possible to get some actually benefit, a cost benefit on that? I mean, surely there must have been a cost benefit done. You haven't got access to that, Andrew.
When it comes to landfill cells, we just have to have them. There's no, at the end of the day, we have to dispose of our refuse in a controlled manner, and the cells is what we use, and they have to be lined, and they have leachate drains, and they have gas lines, everything else. So as the landfill fills up, we will be developing these cells as needed, and we have a program for them, and they are listed in the LTP at the appropriate times.
So how are we going to measure this discharge, though, aren't we? As in, when you put a flare in, you're going to measure so we can claim the carbon credits back.
In regard to the gas, yes, we will be doing a lot of measurements.
Surely there's been a business case done on regarding spending 700,000. And what the potential payback is. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Well, for the flare, yes, and then we will be producing that.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, the Southern Trust Event Centre update. Any discussion? Fabulous. Okay, so now we're just going to go back to minor nature.
Recommendation.
Sorry, excuse me, the recommendation is it to accept, receive and note. Thank you, Councillor Gilchrist, and then second by Councillor Burt, please. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so we'll go back to minor nature.
Through you, Madam Chair, just can we just make sure, and sometimes these are harder to find, that they're all in one spot on the website as far as the project updates when we post them to the website, as opposed to being embedded into a document like this, because people are interested, and if they want to go to a specific project, it's of benefit.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Ms Dixon will raise that. Perfect. Okay, one moment.